years, I suppose now, and I recall listening to his talks long back and what he has transformed into today. He has opted to be perhaps getting more and more into the pediatric respiratory critical care ventilation now. And the development that I saw in last 5 years, I think is phenomenal. He's the one who is into really high level research, and we keep listening to his mechanical power and all those things. We have just started understanding them, and I always believe now the peak of his talks has been the kind of presentations he prepared, the graphics comes out of it. It's amazing. Dr. Farhan Sheikh, for those who may not be knowing, I don't think there is anybody, because in intensive care group that has become a very prominent name from the respiratory pediatric critical care as such. So Farhan is a senior consultant at Rainbow Children's Hospital, Hyderabad. And he is also, I think, NIH accreditor, expert in that. So quality control is his expertise, as I understand. But I think he has got many other expertise and specialties. So without further ado, I request Farhan to speak. His topic is pressure volume loop. We know it well. Perhaps the same discussion he is taking forward from Bhubaneswar.
Yes, sir.
He has started Bhubaneswar panel, and that time Dr. Shekhar was one of the panelists, and now we have Farhan, then Shekhar perhaps will elaborate further. So over to Farhan.
Thank you so much, yes, sir, for your kind introduction. So without any delays, I'm going to start this presentation on pressure volume loop. Do we really know it well? Because we use PV loop every day on our normal mechanical ventilations. And we know now that the normal PV loop looks like this in a spontaneously breathing patient with negative and positive deflection, because during inspiration we generate a negative pressure and then a positive pressure. So this is a spontaneous PV loop, and in a positive ventilation, NIV or invasive ventilation, all the inspiration as well as expiration is towards the right side of the y-axis. During pressure control mode, in first few milliseconds all the pressure is delivered, and then the pressure remains constant throughout the inspiration. That's why you get a box shaped inspiration, while in volume control mode it is sigmoid shaped because the pressure keeps changing during the inspiration. That's why you got two different morphologies in pressure control and volume control mode. The same thing can be seen in this particular video also. So this is pressure control mode. Here you can see that this patient is on this box shaped wave in pressure control mode, and when the same patient is shifted to volume control mode, you can see the morphology is changing and it becomes sigmoid during inspiration like this. So it is important to understand this, because in pressure control that box shape gives an impression as if that's an inflection point. It's not an inflection point, it is the morphology of box shaped PV loop in pressure control mode. During pressure PV loop in volume control mode looks like this in a normal lung, and when the lung compliance is poor, it deviates towards the x-axis. We all know this. And in volume control mode, as we know, if the compliance is poor, the PIP or P plateau will be high and it will be more bending towards the x-axis. And as the compliance is improving, the pressure, the PIP goes on reducing and the angle goes on becoming better and better. In pressure control mode, you cannot really assess the compliance, because as I said, the pressure is fixed. The pressure is achieved within few milliseconds and it remains the same. So you just need to see only the volume achievement. So if there is a poor compliance, you will have a small volume, and as the compliance is improving in pressure control mode in PV loop, you will only see the improvement in the volume achieved. This is the pressure over distinction big, as we know, in pressure volume loop, and this is the air leak we see, and this is the flow starvation. So these are the things. Let us not waste time in an advanced CME like this on these kind of things, which we all know, I'm sure. We will go for on those loops which we normally see on mechanical ventilation are called dynamic loops. We are today going to discuss on static PV loops. So what is a static PV loop? It is a loop which allows us to see the association between pressure, volume and respiratory compliance. But a normal equation of motion is airway pressure is equal to lung volume divided by respiratory compliance plus gas flow, airway resistance, then convective gas acceleration minus the pressure generated by the skeletal muscles. So many factors are there. So when you want a static PV loop and when you want to study only this association, you need to remove all these things. So So you provide some sedation and paralysis. And when you do that, you are removing the confounding factor of pressure generated by the skeletal muscle. And then you provide a very slow flow, like 1 liter or 3 liter, very slow flow per minute and at a very slow rate. And then you remove the confounding factor of gas flows and airway resistance. Then you are left with only airway pressure, lung volume and respiratory compliance to study the true compliance and true pulmonary mechanics on a static PV loop. So if a patient is spontaneously breathing, you cannot measure a proper static PV loop. And if the patient is having a proper normal flow, the way we are normally ventilating, it is not possible to generate a static PV loop. What is a quasi-static PV loop? When you apply the inspiratory hold, the pressure will still keep falling in a VC mode. First thing. And second thing, there is a time after few seconds, 2 or 3 or 4 seconds, after few seconds, you will have to further ultimately remove your inspiratory hold because you will have to allow the patient to go into expiration. So ultimately it is not a completely static, it is a quasi-static PV loop. So same static PV loop is also known as quasi-static PV loop. The most reliable method of measuring a static or quasi-static PV loop is a super syringe technique, where you are basically instilling some volume like 100 ml by a super syringe over a period of like 20 to 30 seconds, and you allow some time for equilibration. This is a gold standard. I won't want to go into more details because we have only 20 minutes, but the disadvantage, as you can understand, is it takes time and it needs disconnection, although some modern ventilators don't require you to disconnect the patient. And one more disadvantage is over the period of time, because gas is spending so much time in the lungs, the oxygen gets consumed by the body also. So there will be some loss of volume. But some experts say that because the gas is spending more time in the body, it also expands because of the humidity and the body temperature. So it kind of counterbalances. There is another technique called low flow technique, where you are basically providing very low flow of 1.7 to like 8 liters. 8 liters is a little on the higher side. It is like 1.7 to 3 liters per minute at a very slow rate, and then generate a PV loop. This was the first study in 1997, which actually studied the PV loop of the chest wall and the lungs separately and then combined. So normally this is the PV loop of lung, this is the PV loop of chest wall, and you can clearly see that the chest wall is so much more compliant than the lungs, and this is the combined average of the two, and this is our FRC, functional residual capacity. And most of the times whatever PV loops we are actually seeing, we are not seeing lung compliance, we are actually seeing the compliance of both lungs as well as the chest wall. So in a normal situation, this is our static PV loop in a normal lung with a normal total lung capacity, and this is our FRC. This is the static PV loop of a child, a patient with ARDS. This is going to be our end expiratory lung volume, and this is our positive end expiratory pressure, and this is our total lung capacity of ARDS patient. And this is a line drawn at the start line to represent the start line. This is the line for representing the inclination line, and this is the line for representing the end line. So now we are getting angles. This is our P flex angle, this is lower inflection point, this is our upper flex angle, and this is upper inflection point, and this is our true inflection point. Most of the experts believe that if your positive end-expiratory pressure is titrated above the lower inflection point, you are safe. So there are 3 major studies, Jesus Villar study, Amato study in 1980s and 90s, which showed that if you titrate your PEEP above the lower inflection point, it carries better prognosis, and there are reasons for that. So this is how you measure the static PV loop at bedside. You keep a PEEP of 0, you can keep a PEEP of 4, 5 also, at a low flow of 2 liter per minute in this particular case, at a respiratory rate of 3 per minute, Ig ratio of 3:1. You can see it's a straight line, there is no lower inflection point, and after a long I time, you get finally an expiration. This is the expiration thing. So finally you get a PV loop like this. So this is a static PV loop. Veneri et al. In 1997 showed that in normal lungs there is no lower inflection point, and you get a typical lower and upper inflection point only in children with patients with ARDS. So what it means is you need to have some under-recruited alveoli, some 20-30%, only then you get a lower inflection point. In fact, there is one more study which showed that chest wall is also necessary to produce some lower inflection point. So That is also one thing, and you need some under-recruited alveoli. If all the alveoli are open, if your lung is healthy, then you don't get a lower inflection point. This was one study which was by Adams et al. And they studied the effect of increasing constant flows on the shape of the PV loop. So this dark loop is static PV loop, and these are three loops which are dynamic PV loops. Dynamic PV loops, as I said, are the loops which we normally get on our ventilator, and these three loops are at three flows of 10, 30 and 50 liters per minute, and at three positive industrial pressures of 0, 8 and 16. And we can see here that as the flow is increasing you can see the loops are moving towards the right. So just by increasing the flow, we are generating a kind of inflection point, a pseudo inflection point, just by increasing the gas flow. And also when the PEEP is increasing, we are seeing that the volume is increasing. This is very important because you can see that actually the compliance of the static PV loop is not changing. That means there is not much of alveolar recruitment, but if you look in the dynamic PV loop, with the increase in the PEEP, you are seeing the change in the volume. So this is called as tidal recruitment. So when you are increasing the PEEP, you are seeing that there is an increase in the volume, but actually it is not equal to the alveolar recruitment. So tidal recruitment is different from alveolar recruitment, and this can be seen through this study, and you can actually measure end expiratory lung volumes by special techniques also to find out whether it is tidal recruitment or actual alveolar recruitment. So what we are seeing now is there is no inflection point in our normal PV loop in most of the cases, and because of the normal flow which we see in normal ventilation, and if the patient is spontaneously breathing, you get this kind of a pseudo lower inflection point. This PV loop we calculated 2 days ago in our ICU. IE ratio was around 5:1 with a gas flow of 1.1 liter per minute, and you can see a straight line in the normal lung. And the same patient, when you do at a normal breathing at 22 per minute rate and gas flow of 12 liters, you have a small lower inflection point here. This is because of the gas flow. There is another technique where you insert a sensor in the trachea at the level of carina, and then when you measure, you see there is an inside loop is the static PV loop, and outside is your dynamic PV loop with a lower inflection point. So this is how it is. Now coming to hysteresis. Hysteresis is the distance between the inspiratory limb and the expiratory limb of the PV loop, which was described first by Mead et al. In 1957. Normally till then people used to believe that inspiration is an active process. So because it is an active process, rapidly the body takes care of the airway resistance and the viscoelastic forces of the lungs. And during expiration, what's happening is it's a passive process. So it is taking a little longer time to take care of the airway resistance and the gas flow. That is why there is a hysteresis. But Nygaard et al. In 1929, he has to be given credit for this, because this person was the first person who instilled saline in the lung and found that it was the surfactant which is responsible for the distension of the lungs. But he did not study PV loop because till then the technology was not that mature. And then in 1957, Mead et al. Did this landmark study, in fact. So this was a first study on human subject. First they did. What they found, today it looks very simple, but we need to understand historical aspect of how they discovered these things, and we should be so grateful to these people. They found that the pressures are higher during expiration for the same volume at different points. This was their discovery. So they found that as the volume is increasing, the pressures are higher and higher during expiration compared to inspiration. And they also found that when you have a smaller volume, the hysteresis is small, and when you have a larger volume, the hysteresis is also larger. And they did not agree that simplistic explanation which was given before, that expiration is passive process and that's why it is taking longer time to cause hysteresis, is true. So they did the same thing which the earlier study of saline was done, and they instilled saline and saw what is happening. Of course, they did this study in animals then, and when they instilled saline, they found, surprisingly, because saline removed the surfactant, and then now they found that compliance improved in the lung after putting saline. Compliance improved, and inspiration and expiration became almost same. And when the lungs were allowed to inflate with air like normal lungs, the compliance was reduced and there was a proper hysteresis. The reason was surfactant. So if there is a surfactant in the lungs, it is producing that hysteresis, and when you take the surfactant out, then you don't have hysteresis in the PV loop. This was a very important study once again by Ravensburger, they had this outside static PV loop, and inside they had 3 dynamic PV loops, and these PV loops were at 3 situations. One situation was when the PEEP was less than P flex without a sustained inflation. Another was when ventilation with PEEP less than the P flex after a sustained inflation. And third situation was when the ventilation was with PEEP greater than P flex after sustained inflation. So these were the 3 situations, and what they found was there was marked difference in the lung volume between the 3 groups, and they termed this as a volume history. So what is volume history? Volume history means the PV loop basically depends upon the amount of PEEP you applied and on at what tidal volume was applied at what PEEP. So this is volume history, and based upon this experiment, they also recommended that we should ideally titrate PEEP on the expiratory part of the PV loop and not on the inspiratory part of the PV loop. So what basically this means is, when we are actually titrating the positive end exhalation pressure during inspiration, as we go on increasing the PEEP, the lung goes on expanding. So you have lower inflection point, upper inflection point, and at total lung capacity, over expanded lung. And when we are at the deflation, you have still a better expanded lung. So if you suppose have a same PEEP of 10, and then you compare the size of the lung during inspiratory limb and expiratory limb, you will see that for the same PEEP, you have a much better inflated lung on the deflation part of the PV loop. So this is what has proposed people to think that if you titrate PEEP after a recruitment maneuver, that PEEP will maintain the alveoli in a recruited state for a longer time compared to keeping just applying a PEEP titration in the inspiratory limb. Finally, this is the Hamilton ventilators static PV loop generation. They have an interesting technique. They don't need to remove the patient disconnect the patient from ventilator. So initially, sustained inflation of 40 centimeters of water is applied, and if a lung is recruitable, what happens is there will be some lung expansion because of recruitment, and there will be some drop in the pressure, and to compensate for that, some volume will be delivered, some flow will be delivered, and that is calculated. So if it is a recruitable lung, you can see that there is a increase in the volume like this, okay? And similarly, you will see that if it is a recruitable lung, you will have a good hysteresis, while if the lung is not recruitable, you will have a poor hysteresis. So this is how you can differentiate by this technique whether the lung is recruitable or not. But this method is not validated by CT scan or electrical impedance tomography. Also, there are some caveats because the volume loss can be because of many other factors like circuit leak or oxygen consumption, etc. One important factor which we also need to understand is the PV curve which we are seeing on the ventilator screen is actually representing the aggregate behavior of millions of alveoli. That is important. So a lung with heterogeneous mechanical properties like in ARDS, the PV curve may represent mainly the healthy alveoli. And this was actually proven by Vieira et al. In this study where they performed CT scan and compared. So they applied 0 PEEP, 10 PEEP and 15 PEEP, and you can see in the CT scan you can see nice recruitment, but in the PV loop there is a straight line. In fact, tomorrow we are going to discuss Chimulu et al. Study of 2008. There also they had 80 children with ARDS and all the 80 adults with ARDS, and all of them had a straight PV loop without lower inflection point, although the patients had ARDS. So to summarize, PV loop is being used loosely by the clinicians at bedside as dynamic tool which has its own limitations and utilities, as we all know. And the static PV loop, which is more ideal tool to assess pulmonary mechanics and needs some training and experience with the special equipment, particularly after combining with measurement of end expiratory lung volume. So if you have a technique like a nitrogen washout technique or electrical impedance tomography, and you are able to measure FRCs and end expiratory lung volume, and you can measure a static PV loop also, then nothing like it, because then you will be able to assess compliance in much better manner. You will be able to differentiate between tidal recruitment and alveolar recruitment, and you will be able to do a proper PEEP titration. Thank you.